All right, everyone. A lot of Trump fans are getting a big ego right now with regards to the turnout in New Hampshire and declaring that Trump has 2020 in the bag because as compared to, most incumbent presidential candidates, he had a huge number of people participating for him in the New Hampshire primary. That number is significant. At this time, I would favor him to flip New Hampshire, which, by the way, would be disastrous for the Democrats. If they lose New Hampshire, that's a bellwether for them losing in Florida, probably losing control of Virginia, where they're on the skids due to their severe anti-Second Amendment stance. Now, it's probable that he'll win re-election. I've been favoring him all along. Since the day that he first took office in 2016, after the election then, it was clear that he had an advantage over the Dems. He's reigning over a good economy, reasonably good diplomatic situation, and the Democrats, by and large, are offering one of two things. They're offering, we're not Trump, or, hey, let's be socialists. They're not offering a sane, reasonable platform. They're not offering something that I think is palatable in a general election. So you basically get the frontrunners right now. Pete Buttigieg is essentially Orange Man Bad, the candidate. He's, I'm young, and I'm a Democrat, so fucking vote for me. Nobody can even really tell me what half of his plans are. I guess he's got Medicaid for all who want it, which is, I guess, better than, you must buy the fucking government plan. But, he's still crazy. And then you have socialism. You have Sanders. Those are the front runners in the Democratic race. Between the two of them, they've won both of the first states. At this point, I don't know if Biden's going to hold on in South Carolina. I think that if he doesn't place in the top three, he's out, which is very much likely. After two spectacular losses, at what point are his fans demoralized because they only backed him because they thought he'd win in the first place? The illusion of invulnerability has been completely shattered. Now we have to wait and see what his new floor is. That's the problem for Biden. By the way, if he drops out, Elizabeth Warren might finally come in third in a state because, he'll be out of the way. Actually, she did in Iowa, but very distant. She managed to barely edge Biden out, but both of them got edged by Klobuchar, of all people, in New Hampshire, which is even more funny. That's the other thing, and this was pointed out the other night, that the combination, the never Bernie vote really sort of wins the day in these states, and Bernie Sanders does suffer from a low ceiling. That being said, regardless of who the actual nominee is other than Sanders, I think that New Hampshire definitely would go for Trump. I think definitely. At this point, the Democrats, what they've done is box themselves in. They've painted themselves into a corner. Because they continuously, and this is, even beyond the 2016 election, they continuously wined and dined the youth leftist vote, using them as cheap manpower, basically. Because the younger voters, what happens is they knock on the doors, they make the calls, they collect the little donations, they organize locally. They're good at that. That's what college kids are good at. They do that local activistic style organizing. They've got more energy. They've got more time on their hands. Some of them, they don't yet have a job, or they do it part-time. They're a part-time student. They're looking for something else to do. They've, in some cases, college kid in politics, political science or whatever, they're basically getting the equivalent of extra credit by working for a political campaign. They're like, this is going to look great on my resume. Oh yeah, I campaigned for this mayor and this senator, and I did all of these things, and I brought this representative. I brought Klobuchar her coffee in the morning. Sometimes she didn't throw it back in my head because the polls were bad, and this is a really good boon for them. Yeah, you don't even have to pay them. They'll work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for free sometimes. You just give them a cot in the back of the office. Essentially, it's kind of shifty, but this is the way it works. Bernie Sanders, by the way, does this. Bernie Sanders underpays his political staff. He's not paying them a living wage. This became a big campaign issue for as long as the legacy media was willing to hold his toes to the fire. The problem is this. By whining and dining that group of people, all the old rock-ribbed New Englander types, they're turned off by this fact. They don't want the DNC to do that. There's a hidden vote, especially in places like New Hampshire and Maine. A little less in Vermont because Sanders is from there, and Vermont's gone way, way far left, so don't count Vermont. But in New Hampshire, which is a swing state, and Maine, which is looking more like it could become a swing state very easily, there's a hidden vote of people who are really goddamn tired of the left wing of politics. This is the case in Vermont too, but it's mostly in the southern four. It's not so much prevalent. In New Hampshire, though, it's an important voting bloc. You've got the Free State Project there as well, trying to import libertarians into the state, actually. And this could be a huge help for Trump. Demographically, New Hampshire and Maine specifically are becoming more red. That's a part of the country that's becoming more amenable to the GOP platform. The same is with the Rust Belt. I think that this will be a continuing trend. I don't think that it's a one-off. Much like the Southwest is becoming more amenable to Democratic platforms. Some of those states, Arizona, was extremely red a decade ago. Now a little bit less so. It's still not a swing state. People pretending Arizona and Texas are in play in this election are fooling themselves. That being said, they are moving in that direction. And there's an equal reaction in the Rust Belt in northern New England. This could even impact Vermont. If once Bernie Sanders is out of politics, which could happen when he's either drops out or loses against Trump in 2020 if he does get nominated, I think Vermont could go red as well. Don't count it out. It is possible. People think it's impossible. It's funny. Everyone seems to think that states that are getting bluer will be blue forever, and states that are getting redder, that's just a one-off. And this is even the case with a lot of Trump fans. They think politics is unidirectional. It never has been and never will be. Paradigm shifts can come very rapidly and be extremely expansive. Stop worrying about everything. Worry a little bit, but not too much. Trump is likely to flip New Hampshire, in my opinion. He even has an outside shot of flipping Maine. Yeah, absolutely. And he certainly has a shot in Virginia. Virginia would be the big one for Trump to target. If I were Trump right now, I'd spend all of my time in 6 states. These are the 6. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, to buff up the Rust Belt, because they have gone back in the other direction to an extent. This may not remain the same. New Hampshire and Virginia to try to pick those off, and defending his very slight edge in Florida. However, some of the candidates, including Buttigieg actually, piss off certain inner city groups and probably would lose Florida as well. The funny part is that Buttigieg would probably lose Florida, but still fare better because of the Rust Belt mainly, and maybe Virginia, than someone like Sanders. Sanders would probably win Florida, but I don't think he would do well at all in the Rust Belt. So he manages to defend New Hampshire, grab up Florida, and then loses everything else, probably loses Virginia. Probably doesn't manage to grab back Pennsylvania or Michigan. Wisconsin, maybe there's an outside shot. But again, this is long game sort of political predictions. We don't even have a nominee yet. Why don't we wait until after Super Tuesday for bigger predictions? But one that I would tentatively say is likely. I'd give him a 75% chance to Trump of flipping New Hampshire at this particular time. Based on the metrics that I see with turnout, based on Trump's approval, which is rising, the Democrats likely not nominating Sanders. That would definitely be a wild card in that equation. If they field Sanders uniquely, I think he has a 90% chance of maintaining New Hampshire. That being said, when you're in an election that could come down to a fairly close electoral vote, New Hampshire matters maybe more for Trump than it would if Sanders were the nominee. That's about all. Peace out.